All right. Let me turn this off for a second. All right. So, I mean, all jokes aside, um, wow, what a journey. I mean, where do we even begin with this conversation? The issue, the blasphemous attempts to continue to siphon resources, like parasitically creating of problems. I guess, I suppose I could. The apology wouldn't be sufficient. An apology is never enough. Um, there are many of you who are being extorted. All of us are being extorted. We're being extorted, right? We're being extorted of children. We're being extorted of money. You're being extorted of time. You're being extorted of energy. You're entitled to compensation and restitution. Your leaders, I guess, if you can call them that, your leaders, your community members, I mean, all types of folks that are trying to just kind of be hush hush or trying to delude you or something. The truth of the matter is, there's many of you who are entitled to all sorts of house, car, home, servants. I mean, in all seriousness, and I find it very, it's shocking to me how people can keep a straight face at this day and age. I know that I'm due to a lot. So, I mean, I just kind of go, because obviously the court system and the folks within it, this is what happens when people get their way in the world, when the world gets its way, and then they can't even fix their own degeneracy, and they don't really have anyone else to blame other than themselves, because this is their doing. Okay, when the men, and I guess you could say women, but more so the men, when the men who are adequate and sufficient to be doing the leading and be having a say, because too many people have dropped the ball and have shown themselves unworthy and underqualified to do what need be done, because they were given ample opportunity to showcase their skill sets and their talents, and they showed me for sure. I mean, on their watch, they've allowed, and by their initiative and by their own actions and nobody else's, they can blame themselves for being culpable and accountable for genocide, for rape, for child abuse, child endangerment, for embezzlement, all sorts of scandalous, I mean, just irrefutable crimes. And it's neither here nor there as far as political parties. I'm not even going under that umbrella. We're going with what? Let's start with this. What on earth, minority folks? First of all, the racism that's rampant in this land, the real racism. I'm not talking about minorities. Your sense of entitlement has just been, it's awful. You guys are creating children, but yet you're claiming that you have a racist institution in a racist society. That's your fault. It's your fault and nobody else's. Having all these children knowing full good and well that there's an alleged racist institution claiming, and then another thing, white supremacy is the least of our concerns. You want white supremacy. White supremacy is the element to what keeps the structure somewhat, I guess you could say, tolerable. Because without white supremacy, it would literally be hell on earth to the extreme level. Yeah. You should be personally, all of you, if you're a minority person, you should be thanking white men, especially. You should be thanking them every second of the day. This is insulting to me. I can't stand this, how things are. I've never been able, ever since I was taken from my home, my life has been nothing but a chaos, disrespect, taken advantage of, exploited, ruined, defiled. Just certainly smear campaigns, defamation of character, and I've witnessed other people go through this. I've witnessed many people go through this. The fact of the matter is that reparations, that's like a cuss word at this point. Reparations, no. The only ones who might be entitled to some reparations, you want to be very frank and honest about it, is starting with straight heterosexual men. That is men. And men is a title that is not delegated to any just one specific type of whatever look. Just because you have a phallus does not mean that you're a man. There's no such thing as having multiple children and then being attached to all these programs and all these. No. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. Just because the opportunity presents itself to basically take advantage of someone or something or people doesn't mean that you should. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. Ask minority people, the ones that are talking about reparations, the ones who are talking about racism and any of that. Ask them why on earth they're still bringing children into a racist society. Ask them that question. Why are you still bringing children into a racist, oppressive society? That's irresponsible. How on earth are you in positions of leadership? And then females too. How on earth can you talk about patriarchy and then yet you're still... Don't bother. Just don't bother. Don't bother. Because there's some of us, we actually like men. Our problem was never with men. Our problem that I see is the lack of respect for the men that are qualified and handing over all sorts of power to powerless cowards that are absolutely unethical. They have no regard for the family, using names like family courts, but there's no sort of a true honor for the family. Putting a stranger's ideology ahead of your own parents' ideology, who managed to raise you sufficiently, effectively, during a depression at that. Some of you guys have parents that you did not deserve those parents. Those parents were too good for you. Some of you have mothers that were excellent, and they were far too good for your treasonous criminality. Other side, some of you had fathers, and your fathers were willing to basically confront a very ignorant society, and albeit a society that was very much underdeveloped emotionally and intelligibly. They said, you know what, they anteed up and they doubled down, and they still did what was, well ahead of their time, and they did things of which most people today don't have the guts to do. And they did this without social services assistance. They did this without needing help. They did this without having to screw people over. People want to make it like this belief, this ideology that you have to screw somebody over in order to survive. No, actually you don't. You don't have to screw people over in order to survive and to exist. The thing is that there are men who have proven that it is possible and it is capable of being done, being able to exist and live and maintain having a family without having to enslave your mothers, without having to enslave his wife. Okay, she was at home, being a mother to you guys, being a wife to him. Don't even bother reaching for any type of excuse. The fact of the matter is, yes, they're supreme. These are superior men. These are men that are adequate, sufficient. They don't have excuses. And those were the very much dishonored to this day. We are the karmic offspring of such. I am a side effect of what happens when the men who are correct are not heard, and they're not listened to, and they're disrespected by a bunch of, I don't even know what to call folks, by a bunch of know-it-alls. They knew so damn much that they had to sacrifice children, abuse children, put them through abuse because they're petty, and can't get over things. So petty, you want to gatekeep. Who are you guys to gatekeep? You can't confront the demons going on in your own backyards, but then you'll have nerve enough to, honestly, taking advantage of people and having the audacity to show up in settings, in arenas, in realms where you, honestly, I'm sitting there going like, I don't know about all that. No. In a culture whereas folks are thinking that the supermarket is the go-to for their food supply. Now, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with that system. I'm saying that a lot of folks don't deserve said system. I would say from the time that people start to learning how to walk, their children should be learning how to put seeds into soil and growing their own crops with how they treat people, how they treat other people, how they're enjoying all these things, all these conveniences, all these inventions, all these crafts, all these services, all these things of which they never once ever had to think twice about where it came from, how it got made, how it was created, what type of energy was put into it, what type of intellect, all this. You don't appreciate very much. Many people don't appreciate anything, but yet, and you can tell they don't appreciate it because while they're on these services, while they're doing all this and all that, they're still stealing, they're still gossiping, they're still lying, they're still doing smear campaigns, and they're still blaming those of which are not accountable for these issues, but yet they're being held accountable. Wanting folks to have resources of theirs taken to support someone else's existence for something that didn't even happen to them. You want to talk about slavery? Let's talk about the modern day slavery that folks are forcing us to go through. Forcing us to go through. So you have female judges colluding with criminals that are going not to our grandfathers. They went over the head of our grandfathers to strangers to do all of this fictitious legal hula hoop circus schematics to steal human beings, and I guess for retribution or something, because they couldn't, fight. They couldn't fight and overpower. That way they had to overpower through the womb, which is a major violation. A major violation. There's children that are being harmed and being screwed for no good reason. They shouldn't have been born. You want to talk about the police violence and all this and all that, and acting like you guys are peaceful people, like you're cordial people, like you're loving people, like you're so spiritually advanced and so respectable. I've seen just from shore to shore, I've seen the same thing over and over, a repeat of patterns, a lack of accountability, a failure to take anything in seriousness. We're here just as merely objects for people that are nobody, really. I guess they feel entitled because of the pigment of their skin or because of the body parts that they have. So you're entitled to being able to traffic people. You're entitled to be able to abuse children. You're entitled to steal from people. You're entitled to basically enslave your own so-called relatives. And still yet, you'll talk about how you want to hire somebody for whatever board, whatever, for anti-racist. You need this. You need a representative to do what? Because why? Because you don't want to respect that a father has a right to say what he does and doesn't want to do with his family, or a mother, her too, has a right to be consenting with her own body. This thing, whereas we're going to turn blind eyes when it happens, blink, blink, to you. When the retaliation happens, or when folks who are selling you, who you don't even belong to begin with, are selling you. You guys want to talk about reparations? Ask Africa for those reparations. Ask Egypt for those reparations. Ask Spain for those reparations. Ask Mexico for those reparations, if you really want them. Leave my people, especially leave Germans alone. They're not guilty for anything other than, if you don't want it being done to you, don't do it to anyone else. And yes, you can exist without having to screw people over. Don't get all holier than thou when somebody treats you in the same regard that you treat them, and then only want to highlight when they respond to your evil corruption and legacy of such with that same notion. Folks really love to point that camera lens and go, oh, you see how they're so mean, they're so violent, they're this and they're that. Yeah, colonizer. They're not guilty of colonization. White men are not guilty of colonization. If he was, it would not be a guilt. It'd probably be a gift, a worldwide gift. Because what's going on in this planet, y'all, are stealing children, femicide rates through the fucking roof. You're fucking sellouts like none other, and you're more evil to your own so-called alleged people than anyone else could ever be. Find the most racist white man in this planet, and I'd probably be I'd get along with him probably a whole lot more than I would with the whole damn world. You guys are sick, absolutely sick and embarrassing. You cannot lie and say, oh, well, somebody forced you to rape women to make a bunch of minority black children or Mexican Hispanic children. Who the fuck is forcing you guys to make all of these kids? Ain't nobody forcing you. Because your erection, you have to have a level of peace in order for the blood to flow down to your balls, in order for your dick to get erect. So get real about that. And furthermore, oh, you can play sports and you can tackle people. We see you in your Olympics and you win in first place and you're doing all this and competing. Plenty of evidence goes to show that, oh, you very well could have overpowered somebody, but you didn't. So don't fucking lie. The lies are done. There's no lie there's no excuse that you can run to. You're going to pay them back.